Hi, I'm Bruce Burke. We're back with more people that are going to be participating in the upcoming Fin+AI 2024 conference. Today, I have with me Chris Fronda. Chris is the founder and the chief logic officer from a company called Logictry. Chris, could you please introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about Logictry and what you do there?
Happy to, and thank you, Bruce, for having me on this. So I have been a 15-year self-taught software architect. I'll just really quick intro about myself. I began my career as a product manager at a Fortune 1000 company called National Instruments, managed one of their $25 million product lines, and then started my first company providing software development services. Some of my clients during that time were Apple, NASA, Pfizer. Worked on very large implementations for Fortune 10 companies. And then after that, I've had my hands in pretty much everything technology-wise, blockchain, dapps, mobile apps, cloud architectures, and then we'll talk today a bit more about just the future of AI and how that's unfolding.
And so you're going to be participating in Fin+AI, and you're working with Hunter Menton from the Growth Lab, and you guys are putting on a workshop there that essentially is an AI IQ assessment for the people that are attending. It will be on the first day, October 2nd. Can you uh, tell the people a little bit like how the Logictree platform is being used to create that assessment, and then two, how it's going to be used to give them a post-assessment forward learning path that they can take with them to the conference and kind of continue their journey, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll introduce that by also sharing a little bit about us, that our mission is we help experts help the world. So a lot of what we look for is partnering with, experts that are maybe top industry consultants, coaches. They've previously operated in a CRO role for an organization in which we're leveraging our technology with their brain to say, okay, how can we now build something that educates better and far more impactfully than we've had before? And I think what we've all seen is, AI has really brought this new just possibilities in the education space. So what we're doing is we're leveraging a lot of these new advancements in AI and the capabilities that it brings in accelerating learning and learning capabilities, but we're doing it in partnership with these experts who have a deep domain expertise and knowledge. And so that's what we'll be working with Hunter on, and just also, us as a business, we are looking for other experts in different fields, but we'll be working with Hunter specifically on packaging up these assessments that really help to understand where attendees are from an education perspective, and then building a personalized learning journey that now helps them really prepare and get better prepared for the conference. The first thing that I'll start off, not necessarily about us, but it's more about just the opportunity. So AI and what has been developed, every single business needs to be evaluating the adoption of AI. And I know there's technologies that have come out, where we hear this and it's like, well, that was a little overhyped. But there's something very special about AI, and let me explain what that is. These large organizations, like OpenAI and all of the other competitors, spent millions training a general purpose artificial intelligence. Now, when they did that, they then created something new. They created a business model around the usage of that AI. And that business model is what's new. And this is why everyone in fintech should be thinking about how to incorporate AI because of this business model. They released these large language models and said, you no longer need to go through this incredibly expensive process of training a large language model. You don't have to spend the millions that we spent. We're going to now let you leverage basically the power of this LLM within your custom needs with only just a pay-as-you-go, pay per use. And that means it's free to get started, and it actually scales very slowly as you start to use it. And then, of course, as you use more and more, the price goes up, but then you can engage, longer term enterprise contracts, or then you might want to create your own. But that's I think the point is that the thing that's really unique about these large language models is that prior to the release of these general large language models, a lot of companies were investing millions themselves in building AI, right? Companies were pouring, their own millions of dollars into training their own custom AI. When these large language models came out and then they released it with this free to get started, pay as you go, all of a sudden companies could incorporate AI without spending millions and start actually creating applications that have never been possible before. Maybe not even just because of the cost, but because of the capabilities as well. So I wanted to frame that because I think it's important for everyone to first understand why there is something very unique about this moment. And again, it's technology, but it's also the business model that should be considered. So the second thing is, and this really comes into what we do, and I'll keep this part far shorter. I mean, the simple thing that we do is when you want to now potentially create your own large language model, these are some of the things that our organization comes into work with these organizations is, okay, let's create your own large language model that's now your own proprietary LLM. So now we can add more bells and whistles, customizations, and also most importantly, we can secure your data so that it's private and not being utilized. Because even though I did share that this pay-as-you-go is great, just know that there's always trade-offs, right? So some of these companies that give you a free-to-use pay-as-you-go, they're also potentially leveraging your data in some of their training. So whenever a company says, we don't want anyone training on our data, we need our own very secure large language model, that's where we come in to help with that secure LLM implementation. And then beyond that, it does go a little bit deeper. As I mentioned, we do look to partner with experts, and then with these experts, we'll even do we'll go even a little bit deeper, where together we might build a specialized large language model for an industry.
Okay, and so it's very similar to kind of the same principles and ideas that Apple is rolling out with its Apple Intelligence, where it's your data is private, and it's going to run essentially on device, right? And it's not going to be on the cloud. And if it is on the cloud, they're talking to some Apple servers that are essentially you're still within the Apple bubble, right? But if you want, I think they called it world data or world information, right? They're a wrapper for ChatGTP, and I'm sure others, Gemini and other partners will come in also, right? And so it's very similar. I'm astounded by how similar it is. So I'm guessing in the same breath that you're probably an advocate of open source AI, or are you more on the closed side with the AI?
No, I think I think that open source is a great thing. I mean, I being a developer, open source has certainly it just creates more. It propels innovation faster because people have access to intellectual property at oftentimes at no cost, or at least just with some special licensing terms. So I think that with these open source large language models, this is a bit of what I was just speaking about too, where we would maybe leverage, like when we work with a business, we would leverage an open source large language model that we would then establish a private version for a company so that they could then utilize it for their own custom bespoke usage. So no, very much a fan of that. The open sourced, as a juxtaposition, is just a managed large language model. They have their different business model. It's closed source to them, like ChatGPT's model, and it brings with it some of the benefits of just being up to date with real-time information, right? I mean, they're motivated, since they're managing it, to keep it as close to real time as possible, and to roll out new and better features that you might not have out of the box with a open source version. So
Okay,
trade off
yeah,
some of those.
because it does cost so much money to train it and all that sort of thing. So you're essentially implementing for enterprise companies and others, kind of the same model that J.P. Morgan Chase is using when they implemented their LLM suite that they've rolled out to some of their investment bankers and researchers and whatnot. They said it's their own in-house version of a Chat GTP like product that they want their researchers. That I think they rolled it out to like 10,000 people. So that's I think that's the model for enterprise businesses, exactly what you described. What are some of the other benefits to that besides just the privacy of your data? What are some of the other benefits for the enterprise that is using that model?
Well, certainly. So privacy of data is huge. The second is cost consideration. So there is a cost, of course, to um, creating and running your own. But if you then are going to be making a lot of calls to the server to get information, it becomes far cheaper to run your own than to use ChatGPT or OpenAI's API calls. So there is certainly a cost benefit to hosting your own as well. And then the third, and I think this is maybe the more this is another highly important consideration as well. I think all three are extremely important. The third is that tuning the large language model to be able to have accuracy. So I think everyone's probably heard that large language models, they hallucinate, they make errors. It just is true. There is, it is a process of tuning and testing to have some reasonable amount of accuracy that you can get out of a large language model. There is no such thing as just 100% accurate. It will have these hallucinations. So the point of rolling your own, the third point of it is to minimize hallucinations and maximize accuracy by focusing that LLM to become an expert in your specific industry on one specific topic. So just ChatGPT has the ability to almost answer questions on everything. It's like a generalist. Like if you think of, someone who is really smart in all general knowledge, but may not have that expertise in financial services. Well, juxtapose that with that one person who knows everything about financial services, but nothing, doesn't really know as much about the rest of the world. It's kind of that same thing you're getting with rolling your own LLM.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and it really kind of clarifies it, I think, for a lot of people. So your company, Logictry, it's Logictry, like circuitry, um, is also does an event. You're going to be at Fin+AI, but you also doing an event. It's an annual event that you're doing. It's World Logic Day. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that came to be and what it's all about and tell us all about that. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, happy to. So Logictry spelled Logictry, but we pronounce it Logictree like history or chemistry, is because we as a company, on one end, we do these enterprise deployments. On the other end, very focused on the future of education. So we're working with the United Nations and the UN Global Schools in some of the ways about what does the future of education look like with artificial intelligence, coming into be, right? I mean, I think maybe we've already all seen some of the news about how kids are now able to do their homework, leveraging ChatGPT. And so I think on this other end of the spectrum, parents are wondering, what will the future of education for kids look like? And also, what does the future of online learning look like? So this is the other side of what we're working on. So the conference that we run, it's called World Logic Day, and it was actually started by the United Nations. They started it before ChatGPT launched because they actually saw ahead of it that they saw that ChatGPT launching was going to have a very profound impact on the future of education. So they created a day dedicated to what that future of education looks like, and we're the partner to that initiative. So that's the other side of what we do is it's about, and this is where I'll actually bring everything kind of back together, is how I've said we partner with experts. The experts that we partner with, we partner in two ways. So number one, we build and solve enterprise problems by partnering with these experts. So we work with experts like Hunter to say, okay, let's go solve enterprise large language models and that side of it. The second way is Hunter and other experts will come and speak at our conference that is, a bit of industry agnostic. It's not specifically focused on AI. It's not specifically focused on anything. It's a bit more just talking about who the experts are in the world and having them, more have a forum and a medium to share more about their expertise on a variety of different topics.
Okay, so it's very similar to what I went to at MIT. It was building the future of AI, enterprise AI, essentially, right? But all the verticals, right? The insurance, the banking, the everything logistics, everything that you can think of, right? Almost every large segment was represented there, so that was very interesting. Obviously I'd like to attend that and learn more about that in the forthcoming event, but back to Logictry and what so how did you get started with this? But give us the Chris Fronda origin story. You kind of said I've been in Silicon Valley. I did this. I did that. How did you come to this idea and then just decide, okay, this is it. I'm going to drill down and build this out, right? Because that's it's quite a feat what you build. I think it's really amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the easiest way I'll say that is I have worked in enterprise, worked at a Fortune 1000 company. I've built software and shipped products with large enterprises like Apple. I have this background of just deep technologist for over 15 years. I also have a mother who is an educator and she has she's been the director of inclusion for K through 5, and so she has spent her career focused on youth education. She's worked primarily with kids from low economic situations, as well as kids that have special needs. Could have autism or other Down syndrome or other things that they might need that support with. So having, I think, these two juxtapositions, for me, this is what you see. Logictry for me is why I jumped into creating this. Is I saw two things. I saw one, an opportunity to solve a lot of the knowledge management and learning and development for large enterprises. But number two, an opportunity to shape the future of education for kids. And I think really helped to amplify a lot of what my mom, growing up having her as an educator, stood for.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, I mean, in everything, education changes everything, right? I mean, once I learned computers, right, I was no longer a line cook, right? And I learned it way back, in the mid '90s, right? When it was essentially coming out. So when did Logictree start, and how old is the company, and how many years have you been doing World Logic Day now that that Logictree is part of?
So we are 5.5 years old. We started it in January of 2019. So this was actually before before large language models came out, and we're actually already building technology to solve enterprise knowledge management and knowledge transfer. So how do we the basis and background of starting it was, how do we get what's in the heads of the experts in a large enterprise into more people so that they're upskilled faster, trained faster, they're doing their jobs more quickly and accurately, has a lot of our very first client, it was all about sales enablement, right? Faster time to close a very complex sale because you have all these tools that walk you through that. So here's one thing that was very, we actually didn't know this for 3 years. By coincidence, we started Logictry on the exact day that the United Nations created World Logic Day.
Wow.
January 14th, 2019, and didn't actually know it. It wasn't until almost 3 years later that my co-founder, Chelsea Toller, she had worked at the United Nations, and she identified, because she was actually looking at our own creating of a Logic Day, and she found that the World Logic Day had been created, and that was a very natural progression that we then became the partner to that.
Wow. Talk about serendipitous. I'm a great believer in that, being in the right place at the right time, and things coincidentally, coming together. There's no coincidences, right? What happens is supposed to happen, and it's too big of a world for that to coincide differently than it did, right? So, about in World Logic Day, I understand it's a lot of different experts from a lot of different verticals, and they're talking about their perspective and their experience and their separate channels. But how does Logictry work independently with someone with this expertise? Again, we could probably use Hunter as an example, right? How do you work with those people to, I guess, connect them with the enterprise, and how does that work, and what does that look like, kind of, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So the short answer, so it's, I wanted to make sure that two parts, right? So there's enterprise, and then there's this very much about the future of education. On the enterprise, when we partner with an expert like Hunter, we are, number one, working with him to go and have enterprise adoption. So working with him on the technology that we've built. Number two, we're also building products with Hunter that identify certain needs in the market that these general purpose tools aren't doing. So building a custom solution with experts like Hunter to then jointly commercialize. This is the opportunity on that half of the spectrum. On the other half of the spectrum, which is more focused on World Logic Day, this is an opportunity to speak alongside other experts that we have highlighted. We had, it's just a couple of experts that we were very excited about. This last World Logic Day that we had Peter Sondergaard, who was the former executive vice president, head of Gartner Global Research for 30 years. He led all of the global research as a top analyst and for Gartner. We had other speakers like one of the former heads of partnerships and worked in venture at Google. And we had board members of Universal. We had founding members of the World Economic Forum, co-founder of TEDx. So we've had these really large experts that come and speak at these opportunities. And so this is an opportunity for those same experts that on one side were maybe building products together, selling them, and solving business enterprise problems. On the other end of it, they're speaking at World Logic Day and then having a chance to more broadly share their expertise and get recognized for that expertise.
Okay, that's great. That's so with Logictry, and I went in and I wanted to get a grip on it once Hunter had introduced you to me, right? And I went in, and there was an exercise right on the front page. I do not recall what it is, but immediately I knew it was different than everything else I had ever seen in relation to learning about something new because one of the first things it really asked me was like, how do you like to learn? Like, how do you like your information? Do you want video? Do you want text? Do you want audio? Do you want, pictures, your narration, right? How do you like to receive your information was kind of the first question. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that uh, helps facilitate learning on using the Logictry platform?
Yeah, so that is where, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's where we are a little bit different than just a large language model like these other LLMs. We incorporate them, but what we've designed is the future of interactive content. And so one of the use cases of ours is personalized learning journeys, right? So it's I think we're going to see this trend in learning and development. We're moving away from and you can see this all over LinkedIn Learnings and all of these other platforms that are building personalized learning journeys. We are moving away from just here is an 8-hour module. You may already know 80% of it, but we're going to make you sit through all of it just so you can learn that 20% you didn't know. I think we're going to move away from that to how do we ask better questions? How do we assess a learner's aptitude? And then how do we dynamically in real time build a learning experience that is tailored to their exact needs? And that's what you see with our technology, and that's what goes back to what you were saying about what we're going to be building with Hunter for the conference is how do we build these tools that better understand the aptitude around the topic, and then build the fastest, shortest, because every one of us is limited by time. I think I certainly cannot get enough time back in my day. So if I can have tools that ask me a few questions and then takes 8 hours of learning down to maybe 8 minutes of learning exactly what I need to know to become an expert the fastest on any topic, that is what we're calling it, at least the personalized learning journeys is I think what right now you see with most of these like I said, on LinkedIn Learning and a lot of these sites, you're seeing now these personalized learning journeys.
It's everywhere. There is
Yeah.
as I'm going out every day. Well, we're doing the newsletter every day, and I'm putting out a lot of different content about the industry generally, right? I'm not just come to our conference, come to our conference. Nobody wants to hear that every day, right? So I'm trying to put out information about things that are going on in the industry. One, to show the growth of this, right? Because it's a tsunami, coming over us, right? But I really think that educating people on this is the best way to get uptake on this, right? So when you're dealing with a client, and you've dealt with a lot of clients that are uh, coming into this brand new, right? They have no clue, what to do, how to do it, how to get there, anything else. What's really the inception point? What concept do most of them come to you with that maybe they should rethink before they approach someone, right? What how are they misinterpreting AI?
I think maybe one thing that is that I was kind of alluding to that is about how quickly you can adopt and leverage AI is that you don't have to create and invest a significant amount of money to build your own large language model from the ground up. That is what's been done. Leveraging that capability to now have an AI answer questions as if it's an expert on what you do, on your knowledge, is actually does not require you to invest a lot of money, a cost prohibitive amount, to train up a large language model. So let me explain what I mean by that. So the large language model, it's been built to just generally answer questions. And then let's say you have, your enterprise organization has all of this deep domain specific vertical knowledge, right? To take all of that knowledge and information and then say, okay, I want now this chat GPT or this large language model, I want it to be an expert on our knowledge and I want it to tell everyone what it knows. You don't have to train a large language model from the ground up to be able to accomplish that. There's actually these new techniques that are coming out, one of which we'll probably learn at the conference, like RAG. So if you look up RAG architectures, things like that, where you're actually leveraging different approaches and system architectures that utilize the large language model, but don't require you creating one from the ground up. So I think that's probably the biggest piece here is to say that, I think first understanding that you're actually able to, really leverage what it already does off the shelf to make an enterprise solution that solves for knowledge transfer across the organization. And this is, of course, what we help with is how do we tackle solving knowledge transfer using these new architectures that are that are not cost prohibitive.
A good example of that is I watched a video on this last night by one of the reviewers on YouTube. They released the iOS 18.1 beta for developers, which includes the Apple Intelligence in it, and it has some of the first features. And one of the first features is Siri is now an expert on all Apple products and services. That's a really great example of what Chris is talking about here. Essentially, you can ask your Siri, like, how do I reset my earbuds? How do I use my phone as a camera when I'm doing a podcast? How do I, any number of things, right? How do I reset my MacBook back to factory so I can sell it when I buy the new one next year? All those sorts of things is now all built into this Apple Intelligence, and it's done. It's accomplished by simply asking the GTP to get the information for you, right? And it returns it both in voice and in text. And I'm imagining probably down the line, maybe multimodal stuff, some video clip, or a little piece of a picture, maybe pointing at a button you got to press, or that sort of thing. So it's very much what you're talking about, I believe, here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and here's the analogy that I would use that might help. So imagine, you have a legal question. Actually, I'll stick with finance. Let's stick, because this is a fintech event. You find someone who has been, an expert in fintech products. Maybe he's an investment banker for 20 years, and then you have this one very specific, nuanced question about regulation. That expert says, I don't know the answer, but I can go read the information and then I can tell you the answer. So then the expert goes and reads it. Now you may try to read it on your own and you still have gotten nowhere, but that expert goes and reads the information and the regulation. They're able to parse and understand it, and then they give you the answer. Even though they didn't have the answer already, once they read it, they could give it to you. That's essentially what's happening with these large language models. Think of them like that. They're like an expert generally, and then you ask them a question and they go read it almost instantly, and then now they come back to you with that answer. And that's a bit of what I was just sharing. You don't have to train one from the ground up. You can really leverage your existing knowledge, because think about this little expert as just in time. It will go read your documents and then answer any question.
And I'm sure, again, back to the example of Apple, I'm sure that can be used both consumer facing and, in the enterprise level for customer service. And like you said, knowledge transfer within the organization itself, instead of that old book in the customer service center of customer has this problem, turn to page 6, right? Read down it. That's the way it used to be, right? The support, when they didn't know, they looked through a decision tree book. So this is something I never thought about before, what you just described. So the GTP reads as quickly as it outputs, because it outputs like nobody's business. I mean, it'll write a book for you in a day, right? It's crazy. So it does glean information as quickly as it outputs information?
Yeah, well, I would say that the way that I would answer this is more that, because it is, I'm using a bit of analogy here. It's more that the large language model, think of it like the expert, and then it can have access to maybe real-time data, or it can go and read sources. But just so you know, it might not be real-time reading the source. What might have happened is that source of information had already been ingested and then had been converted into, you might have heard of it, vector database, and it might have been linearized and vectorized into this database, and leveraging some of those technologies, it's quote unquote reading it in real time. So I think it's more just that, think about them. Go back to the analogy is the easiest way, where you think about you talk to an expert who's been doing something for 30 years, and you ask them a question, and they may not know the answer right away. They may need to go look at some data sources. They may need to look at some of the information that they've stored on their hard drive, or read some new regulation, but then they can really give you that accurate answer. And that's the same analogy that we're saying with these businesses, that we will help them look at, okay, how do we leverage that same type of thing where you have the large language model? Maybe we're going to say, okay, let's connect to these real-time data sources. Let's leverage these existing data sources that we already have today. Let's create a pipeline for these new data sources that we'll have tomorrow and beyond. And then let's have this AI, ultimately the end goal is, let's create something that's always able to just be that expert, on demand.
So if someone wanted to take one of these large language models, and the choice is getting to be rather large, right, as to which one they choose to start out with, to implement a RAG and to take it to market, whether it's customer facing or whether it's enterprise facing, how long does that usually take? And I know it depends on how much data they want to implement into it, but is it days, weeks, months? How long does it take to do a RAG implementation?
Yeah, I mean, it could be done in one single day, depending on the data sources. It really does come back to the data source, because um, the process of implementing RAG is fast, right? We're talking about a process of ingesting some data, and then using this ability to convert it into a vector, putting into the vector database, and then having all of this work together, right? That is very quick. And so, but now if we start talking about, okay, what are these data sources, and how many are there? So maybe if there's thousands, and then maybe if these data sources, some of them are better structured than others, then we have to have a conversation how we're going to clean up the data. That might add some length to it. And then the second thing is, are we also going to leverage large language models that are just open off the shelf APIs, or are we going to have maybe Llama 3 instance that we're going to host? So I think there's some of these questions that we'll ask, but we are talking about implementations that could be days, if not weeks. We're not talking about month-long implementations, unless you start to get into much larger deployments. Now, where month becomes more and month-long and many months long, is when you now start to talk about accuracy of the information. So one of the projects that we're focused on right now is scaling the knowledge of a chief medical officer in medical insurance. You can imagine the accuracy there. There is no room for inaccurate data, right? So, and also we're talking about private data and HIPAA compliance, and we're talking about a lot of details there. So that's an implementation that is certainly in the months, of implementation, to make sure that we get all that information ingested. Also, additionally, some of these other projects might deal with information that's simply uncaptured. So, yes, you may have all of these PDFs of data, but sometimes that knowledge is existing in the head of an expert that's simply uncaptured. That's another area that we tackle as well that may take it into the weeks and the months of implementation. So yeah, I know there's a bit of a long explanation there, but I would say you can certainly implement RAG in under a day, maybe even an hour if it's just a simple PDF or some documents. But if you want to start getting into, HIPAA compliance, highly accurate for, medical, or it could be in the financial services, that level of accuracy is where timing can get prolonged.
So time to market is very quick if you're a manufacturer or you're a service advisor or a service oriented company, or just a product company that's selling a boxed product, right? And I'm seeing a lot of um, things around chatbots and customer service, and I'm starting to hear rumblings. I had a conversation with a CEO the other day, and he was talking about super agents, right, and or multi agents, right? That seems to be another thing that's in the how does is that any part of Logictry? Do you guys work in that implementation phase at all? Do you deal with multi agent or super agent or just individual chatbots? Have you helped organizations with that stuff?
Yeah, so chatbots, certainly, I'd say we're a little bit less, our focus is a bit more specifically on knowledge transfer, um, general knowledge management, learning and development, and really helping people, learn anything quicker, getting new hires up to speed faster. These are the areas that we're really hyper focused on. We're a bit less focused on, I'd say, some of the other areas of application, which are automation, task automation. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of is these these AI agents that you're able to have a natural conversation with, like, go book me a plane ticket, and it'll actually perform these tasks on your behalf just from natural language. It'll have and I've already, there we have these there are these types of technologies out already that they'll go and do that. They'll be able to interpret a website, read it, and actually go through the entire website process in a completely automated form. And I think that's going to be, so that is an area that we're less focused on. Like I said, we're much more focused on the learning aspect and the knowledge transfer aspect.
Okay. Okay. So it's in I'm asking everybody this, and we're drawing it. I want to be knowledgeable about your time here. In your mind, what is the killer app for AI? What is its ultimate use for humanity generally? And part two of that is, where do you see this all in, like, just 5 years, right? It's for like standard interview question, right? Where do you see yourself in
Yeah.
5 years, right? So that's the two-parter to kind of round this out.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly going to sound biased by plugging and saying we believe that we're a part of that. I'll start and say that I do think the automation work that we're not doing will certainly be a very large part of it. Just automating mundane tasks like going to a website and having this AI on your behalf perform this work. I think that will be a very large part of it. I would say the other half that we are focused on, that at least I believe that there is, I think that the next generation, the kids of tomorrow, I believe there is a future in which the next generation will have the ability to learn things much more quickly and become more of an expert on a broader array of topics. I think that this will unlock quite a bit of opportunity in economic opportunity for the next generation. I think it can also unlock better collaboration and understanding between one another, where there may be a lot of just disagreements. So I think that's at least the part that we're really excited about, is what this could, how this could transform education, and how AI could bring about a smarter, more informed, and I'll put a plug here, more logical next generation. So.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you there. I just saw a real quick aside. I just saw an interview with Vinod Khosla a week or two back, and he said in 5 years, like, all expertise will be free or so minimal of cost, right? Doctors, lawyers, everything, right? Because of GTPs, right? He said it's essentially going to be low or no cost, right? So if people want to get in touch with you, Chris, how do they reach you? How do they reach Chris Fronda, and how do they get started with Logictry?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to email me at chris@logictree, spelled logictry.com. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn, Chris Fronda, Fronda.
Okay. And I just wanted to remind you, we are uploading all this to the cloud. So hang around a minute after I shut off the recording so we don't do it. But I really want to thank you for coming, participating, being a part of the event, and then taking part in this also. And I really look forward to your assessment. I want to take one myself, see where I'm at, because I'm brand new to AI. I'm a fintech guy, right? So I'm really interested in what you're doing, and I'm really interested in seeing how you continue to build this out, and look forward to meeting you actually in person at the event.
Likewise. Thank you again for having me on.